Happy October, and to celebrate this, we'll talk about the spookiest thing: dead people, exhumed corpses, dead rulers, and various museums. Let's get into it, shall we? First, let's look about who Oliver Cromwell actually is. Oliver Cromwell was Lord Protector of England, and he took over after the execution of Charles I. He said his kid would become the next Lord Protector, but then his son stepped down like 5 years after he died and let Charles II come onto the throne. One thing to know about Charlie is that he was different to his dad, Charles. Charlie was a slight eccentric man. He held large parties and earned himself the nickname King of Partying. But what is important for this little story is Charles' pettiness. So Charlie takes Oliver Cromwell out of his prestigious grave inside of Westminster Abbey and puts his corpse on trial, sentencing Cromwell to beheading. So they take off his head and bury the rest of Cromwell's body back in Westminster. His head, however, has a different path. Its first stop on the tour is the Tower of London, where his head was placed upon a spike to warm the citizens of London, and you may wonder if that's where the decapitated head rotted and just broke down into the ground, becoming part of the earth. Well, no, it didn't. They say a measure of flattery is when your head and your body has two separate Wikipedia articles. Luckily for Cromwell, his head has a separate article. That can mean either he was actually highly respected or his head went on a lengthy journey. And it starts with the iron chain link fence around the Great Tower, put up in 1661 and brought down in 1684 by some natural intervention to stop Cromwell's head from being a good place to let crows poo. The legend goes, which I can first credit to the LA Times article after a few Google searches, one late and stormy night, a wind blew Oliver Cromwell's head off the spike onto the ground, until taken home by Private Barnes. And then Barnes hid the head in the chimney, and that's where the last record of it until 1710 was. See, in the Inter-Head period, the British Isles were scrambling to get back a crummy head, with multiple significant cash prizes being given to people who handed it over. We can't assume much of what happened during this period, as the head went missing, but we do know in 1710 the head was bought by a Claudius Dupuy, a Swiss man who collected trinkets and oddities to display in his London museum, which was quite the hotspot in his time, but I cannot find out what came of the museum. Believe me, I searched. From there, the head was in ownership by one Samuel Russell, a drunk and failed comic actor, and not to reign on Russell after his death, but his only claim to the head was that he was thought to be one of Cromwell's descendants. Next, the head was bought for £100, or £15,830 in modern currency, by a James Cox, known for his toys and his very rare and pricey museum. But many people speculate the head purchase was more of an investment than everything, as James sold his museum a few years prior. Then a year before his death, Cox sold the head to the Hughes brother for £230, or around £300,000 in modern currency, and the Hughes wanted to make money off it, selling the entry fee to see the head at a modern £5, but no one believed the head was real, so they decided to sell it off. There were no buyers, so their daughters have to sell it off to a Joseph Wilkinson, who is now the head's namesake. Wilkinson died, and so his son Horace Wilkinson got the head. This Wilkinson let George Rollstone study the head. Then, to skip past Horace Jr. got given the head and decided to sell it to Oliver Cromwell's college, which he visited for a year, which is Sydney Sussex College. The head was buried in secret, placed in a velvet and oakwood box, buried in the ground near the antechapel in complete secrecy. And that is the story of Oliver Cromwell's head. Hope you enjoyed this video, and remember, you heard this on the grapevine. See you next time.